Great. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. I'm Chris Turner, Chair of the Texas House Democratic Caucus, and we wanted to speak with members of the media today to update you on several things and also talk about the issues back in Texas that need to be addressed. And to talk about all of those things today, we have three outstanding members of our caucus who are going to be addressing you. We're going to start off with Representative Ana Maria Ramos from Dallas.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. Soy Ana María Ramos, diputada estatal del Distrito 102 para la ciudad de Dallas, Addison, Garland y Richardson. Y estamos aquí por la lucha por la voz de nuestra comunidad, por la protección del voto. Vemos que durante este último mes el gobernador Abbott ha tratado hasta lo imposible, ¿verdad?, para limitar el voto de nuestra comunidad. Y fíjense que la verdad estamos aquí no porque cómo votaron nuestra comunidad, sino por quién votaron. Déjenme repetir eso, no es porque cómo votamos, están alegando que fue algún, digamos, irregularidad. No es así, es que estamos aquí porque los republicanos no quieren que nuestra comunidad ejercen su voto y su voz. Pero vamos a seguir adelante luchando como nuestra comunidad sabemos hacer. Parte de esta propuesta de ley, para que sepa nuestra comunidad, me imagino yo cuando yo llevaba a mi abuelita, esta propuesta de ley dejaría que uno de los terroristas que fueron al Capitolio el 6 de enero, que esa misma persona esté detrás de su abuelita si ella quiere votar, ¿verdad? Viola la privacidad del voto seguro. Entonces, por eso estamos luchando aquí hoy. Hello everybody, my name is Ana Maria Ramos. I am the State Representative for Texas House District 102, which is North Dallas, Richardson, Addison, and Garland. And we are here because the fight is about our state government's priorities. Remember, Governor Abbott did not call a special session when we had a pandemic where over 50,000 Texans died. It didn't matter to him. He called this special session because it's nothing more than a month-long campaign commercial for his re-election. If he really truly wanted to pass the 13th check for retired teachers, we're ready to do that. We've been ready to do that for 5 sessions now. They chose not to. He, the governor, and his Republican Party, the party of Donald Trump, chose to leave that on the table, chose to leave the 13th check on the table. If we want to have those conversations, if he's truly about helping retired teachers, if it's truly about helping the foster care system, they could have done that during the regular session. Once again, they chose not to. And remember who the leadership of our state is. This same party, Donald Trump's party, chose not to call us for a special session during a pandemic. Instead, they forced voters to go out during the pandemic and to vote. They limited voting options. When we had individuals like Commissioner Lina Hidalgo protecting the people and ensuring that everybody were able to exercise their vote. They chose not to do that during a special session. But when it comes to bathroom bills and when it comes to policies such as limiting the vote, they want to call a special session. We're not going to stand for that. We're going to stand for the people, the voters of Texas, and once again, thank you for being here. And I pass it on to John Rosenthal, State Representative. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Ramos, and thank you. I'm John Rosenthal, Texas State Representative, House District 135, representing Northwest Houston, Northwest Harris County. We here, and all of our colleagues, are anxious to get back to Austin and deliver for our constituents on the issues that are most important to them. Things like health care, response to the pandemic, fixing our electrical grid, things that are really important to Texas today. It's them, the party in charge right now, are the ones who had underfunded our foster care system and neglected thousands of vulnerable Texas children for years, decades even. They took a victory lap when they claimed to, quote, do everything to fix our electrical grid. We know that that wasn't true. We know our electrical grid in Texas is vulnerable today, like we're worried about getting through this summer. And we cannot address legislation this summer to fix our electrical grid unless the governor puts it on the call, unless Governor Abbott specifies it for a special session. So far, he has said no. He has the sole authority under the Texas Constitution to decide what we may or may not even take up during a special session. Not 6 months ago, hundreds of Texans, we estimate over 700 Texans died because our state electrical grid failed in February. My house sustained damage. And just 6 weeks ago, millions of Texans worried about losing power in a June heat wave. Abbott alone could authorize us to fix the power grid, to really fix the power grid, and not just do some window dressing in a big old bill. But he refuses. Instead, he took $1 million campaign check from a billionaire energy company CEO in June, when we should be working on the grid. Meanwhile, a bipartisan coalition of Texas lawmakers stands ready to expand Medicaid. The time has long been right to expand Medicaid for Texas. But hundreds of thousands of Texas families go without health care, and Texans die because Governor Abbott says no. I'm going to pass this now to Representative Barbara Gervin Hawkins.
Thank you, Representative Rosenthal. My name is Barbara Gervin Hawkins. I represent District 120 out of San Antonio, Texas, the historical East Side and Northeast. This fight is not about one person or one entity. It's about our state's priorities. Our priorities are doing everything we can to kill this voter bill in Texas, and to help pass the new federal voter protection legislation here in Washington, D.C. This sacrifice has been challenging for many of us, but we're here for the people. We are committed to visiting every member of the U.S. House and the Senate. We're going to keep engaging the President and the Vice President and our friends in the Biden administration. And we're never going to quit lifting the voices of our constituents. Countless Texans who have fought so hard for the sacred right to vote. We cannot let them down. This is not a partisan issue. It's a one person, one vote issue.
That's right.
Today, we had an uplifting meeting with Majority Whip James Claiborne. He reminded me of the days of old, when our forefathers and our foremothers died for us to have the opportunity to vote. So we must continue this fight. We all stand ready to help if our governor and our Republican colleagues in the legislature want to put politics aside, pass the 13th check for our teachers, expand Medicaid, fix the grid, save our children in foster care. Those are the real priorities of Texas. And guess what? Those are our priorities. So, Mr. Governor, I plead with you. Work with us. Get this done for the people of Texas. You were voted to represent all of Texans, not just a few. Thank you, and I'd like to pass it over to our Mr. Chair, Chris Turner.
Thank you very much, Representative Gervin Hawkins, Representative Rosenthal, Representative Ramos, for your powerful words, and we'll be happy to take a few questions. And I know we're going to have, and just so everyone in the room is aware, we have several journalists viewing this live via Zoom, so they'll be submitting questions into the chat that Kara will read out to us, but we can start if any of the press in the room.
Chris, can you give us an update about how many of your members and staff have tested positive?
6.
And do you connect your group with the positive on Speaker Pelosi's staff and at the White House?
Todd, I saw that story, and I don't have any information on that. There was a story about something about a reception last week on a rooftop terrace, is what someone told me about. No member possible that there was a meeting with the speaker's staff on the Hill. It was at the reception. That's certainly possible. But we have no way of knowing that. I think what's important to realize is that the vaccines are incredibly effective, and it's important to note the people who have tested positive in our group on the rapid test all are experiencing either very mild symptoms or no symptoms at all. That's number one, because they are fully vaccinated and the vaccines work. And one of our colleagues said on TV last night that if he hadn't taken the test, he would assume that it's Representative Martinez Fisher. I think he said something to the effect that he would have thought it was allergies or maybe it's a minor cold or something. So everyone should get vaccinated if they've not already. Also, it is clear when we look at what's happening with Major League Baseball, the Olympians right now, we're seeing breakthrough cases in the vaccinated population in a wide array of professions and parts of the world. And so it's just I think a reminder that we don't know what variant it is, but there's a presumption that perhaps it's this Delta variant, which is more symptomatic. More contagious than previous variants. And so it's really, really important that we get people vaccinated ASAP, because if they get it, they either won't even know they have it, like people here didn't know they wouldn't have assumed they were sick, where we're not doing proactive testing, or they'll experience very minor symptoms if they're vaccinated.
Just to clarify, there was that reporting about the reception on the hotel rooftop, whatever, but the staffer for Speaker Pelosi supposedly had chaperoned a number of your people around.
So I don't know exactly who the staffer was. I don't know the identity of the person. There were a couple of people from the speaker, at least one person from the speaker's office that was helping us last week when we were on Capitol Hill. I can verify that. I don't know if this is the same person.
Is there any update on your end on a meeting with President Biden? I'm sure you saw Jen Psaki was saying that has not been on the schedule. It's still not on the schedule. And I think there's kind of a presumption that if you all are considered potentially contagious, that would be less likely.
Sure. So there's no update to answer your question. Obviously, we welcome the opportunity to visit with the president virtually, just as we did with Majority Whip Clyburn a couple of hours ago. And we're looking forward to having more virtual meetings over the course of the next several days. Let me get Jonathan, and then we'll go to Zoom.
Could you provide some more details about what you heard from Majority Whip, and if it gave you any sense of the strategy or the way forward and the role you play?
Absolutely. I think Whip Clyburn was inspirational, and he thanked the members of the House Democratic Caucus who've made the tough decision to leave in order to stop the passage of vote suppression legislation in Texas and to protect the freedom to vote for our constituents. He encouraged us to continue using our voices on Capitol Hill, figuratively, virtually or in person, and through the media and other platforms we have, to continue to urge the Senate to act. And specifically, he talked frankly about, certainly our focus has been on, and their focus has been on H.R. 1, S1, the For the People Act, which in that continues to be a focus. But I think there's an interest and a real desire to really start moving forward on the pre-clearance provision to restore the Voting Rights Act, which was gutted in the Shelby County case in 2013. That's what we really need in Texas. We need all these reforms. We really need that one, because that's how we can block repressive voting laws in Texas. It's how we can block discriminatory redistricting plans in Texas, as Republicans have drawn intentionally discriminatory redistricting plans multiple times just over the last decade. So moving pre-clearance onto a fast track is something that appears to be in consideration in the Congress, and we're excited to hear that, and we're going to push for that in our continuing conversation.
Would that fast track be before you leave here, or is that?
I couldn't speculate to the timing, but there is, our colleagues who met with Senator Manchin last week said he was very clear that it's something he supports, and supports supplying it to all 50 states. Yes.
All right, so Wes Rappaport with Next Star Media Group. As Republicans highlight foster care funding needs today, what concerns do you have about the state's foster care system? What more should Texas do to improve it? And is this issue worthy of your return to the Capitol?
I'm going to let Representative Urban Hawkins speak to foster care.
Foster care is a critical issue. You know, our young people need the support. So, and the families that, you know, the new move is to engage families more in foster care, but they need the resources to be able to take care of those additional family members. You've got grandmothers taking care of their grandchildren. You've got other folks, and so bringing those additional resources to those that are taking care of our foster care children, also being able to make sure that there's proper staffing to maintain any foster care facilities.
Next question.
Zach Montalaro with Politico. Representative Dutton was seen on the State House floor earlier this morning. Was he a part of the original delegation in D.C.? Has any member besides Dutton gone back to Austin?
Thanks for the question. So Representative Dutton was with us for a few days in D.C. He was not, however, in the total of the 57 members who signed a letter last week when we left instructing the Journal Clerk of the Texas House of Representatives to lock our voting machines until we return and notify the clerk in writing that we wish to have our machines unlocked. So he was not in that total of 57. Next question.
So Nicole Killian with CBS News. With respect to the recent COVID outbreak, would this have happened if we had stayed home? Do we regret coming to D.C.?
We don't regret coming to D.C. at all. It was very important to protect the freedom to vote that we leave Texas in order to prevent Republicans from passing their anti-voter legislation. It was equally important that we use this moment to highlight the need for federal voting rights and legislation. And that's what we have been doing nonstop for the last 8 days since we've been here in our nation's capital. With respect to COVID, I refer back to my previous comments that it's clear there are breakthrough infections happening in large parts of the population. We've seen it with Olympic athletes, we've seen it with Major League Baseball and other populations. And frankly, I mean, the reason we know that we've had some of those breakthrough infections here, we have fully vaccinated people who are suffering 0 to mild symptoms, is simply because we are proactively testing. If we were not proactively testing, we probably wouldn't even know about it, and you know, probably in many parts of the population there are some breakthrough infections occurring, but those who are vaccinated don't realize it. And this is an important point as it relates to vaccines in Texas. We're talking about Governor Abbott's misplaced priorities. If he wanted to be focused on something important, something serious, he'd be focusing on our abysmal vaccination rate in the state. We're not even halfway vaccinated yet in Texas. And we have cases rising again, hospitalizations are up again, and this Delta variant is serious stuff. And the governor, as our chief executive, should be showing leadership on that issue, but I haven't heard him talk about vaccines in weeks, if not months.
All right, David with KHOU in Houston. Out of all the Texas lawmakers who traveled, have any of them gone to any other state? Have Republicans reached out to you all individually? What are they telling you?
We have more than 50 Democrats outside the state of Texas, and we're going to continue to maintain more than 50 Democrats outside the state of Texas to prevent Republicans from passing a voter suppression bill. Sure, colleagues reach out all the time. I haven't really heard from anyone. I think maybe I got one call last week. But members have checked in, I think, on members who to see if they are okay health-wise, and I think members appreciated that. So some of those calls are happening, and that's not uncommon at the Texas House.
All right, last question. Priscilla Thompson with NBC. Did you discuss a filibuster carve-out with Representative Clyburn and the strategy for that? And Biden has been reluctant about filibuster changes. Do you think Clyburn can move the needle?
James Clyburn can move the needle just about anything, I think. He can, as President Biden knows, given his victory in the South Carolina Democratic primary last year, that Mr. Clyburn's endorsement had lot to do with. And we all know and respect Mr. Clyburn for his lifelong work fighting for justice and equality. With respect to the filibuster carve-out, I think that's one tool, one option that leaders on Capitol Hill are pushing for. I said that in my comments last night in the town hall meeting, that we certainly are excited about how I would describe Mr. Clyburn's elegant solution to getting voting rights legislation done in the U.S. Senate by having a carve-out from the filibuster for purposes of passing voting rights legislation. But I also want to lift up the concept of Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act and the pre-clearance mechanism that is very important that we get back. And I think that's very much in discussion too. Procedurally, we'll leave the procedural decisions to the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House. They know best how to move legislation through their chambers. What's important is that they get something done soon to protect the freedom to vote for all